Hello, my name's Ian, and I want to say a few things about the background to the program that you're about to do. The first thing I want to say is I'd like you to imagine that each time you log into the platform, or each time a teacher logs into the platform, they're actually they're logging into the brain of an instructional coach. And that each of the teaching techniques that they use as part of professional learning activities that you might use as part of the coaching process, I'd like you to imagine that they are models, they are mental models, they are schema of individual particular teaching techniques. That's the first thing I wanted to say. The second thing I want to talk about is highlight a fundamental difference between an instructional coaching model and other models of coaching, like, for example, the GROW model. In an instructional coaching model, the coach puts forward solutions. In other models like the GROW model, the coach doesn't put forward solutions. The coachee is expected to kind of work things out for themselves. So by giving all teachers access to the app, we're actually giving them all access to solutions to barriers to progress, to learning needs that may emerge in the classroom. And what that means is that teachers can focus on the core task of adapting that technique into their context. So whereas in other coaching models, you've got to come up with the solution, and then once you've agreed the solution, then look at how you would adapt that into that individual teacher's context. The first step, if you like, to a large part has been done, and we've got the solution. And so the teacher can sometimes on their own focus on adapting that solution to their context, sometimes with their peers, and sometimes they'll need a coach. So what I'm alluding to here is that this program is not just about you coaching individual teachers, it's about putting in place a whole organizational approach to instructional coaching. And the suggestion here is that there's a coaching conversation that is part of all professional learning activities anyway. Now, that's just a suggestion. So let's unravel that a little bit. So the third point I'm going to make borrows the work of Donaldson, Joyce and Showers, and more recently, Professor Helen Timperley. And I'm going to ask the question, what is the purpose of professional learning activities? So why do we, and here I'm just going to list a few of the activities that we engage in our schools, in our colleges, in our universities. Why do we coach? Why do we do lesson observation feedback? Why do we do partnership teaching, self-study, teaching and learning groups, instructional rounds, unseen observations, peer observations, meetings, supported experiments, workshops, training days? What is the purpose of that? And the suggestion of these guys is that they all have one aim, and that aim is to meet the learning needs of students. Another way of putting it is to help students get over the barriers to progress that are emerging as part of the teaching, learning and assessment that's happening. And the suggestion from Timperley is that for any professional learning activity to be effective, to be meaningful, the activity has to include a theory of action. It has to include a professional learning conversation. Now, if we talk about theory of action, what we mean by that is that there's a situation that I want to change. I know that if I carry on doing what I'm doing, I'm going to keep getting the same situation happening. So my theory is if I try this, I'm going to get a different result, and I'm going to try that. That's my theory, and then I'm going to try it out. Now, Timperley puts a lot more of a structure on that. And the suggestion here is that if we look at the structure of a professional learning conversation, if we look at the steps of a professional learning conversation, they are also fantastic steps to take as an instructional coaching conversation. So let's take a look at those steps. The first step is identifying what the situation is. What is it that we want to change and why? The second step is finding a solution. And the suggestion here is that there's an awful lot of solutions that you can find in the brain of an instructional coach on the app. Once you've found the solution, you've got to learn it. And the suggestion here is that the combination of still visuals and words, the fact that they are combined rather than separate, the fact that we're not relying on words to communicate what a particular teaching technique is, will help accelerate the teacher in learning what the technique is, so that it makes it easier for them to focus on their core task, which is adapting it into their specific context, and then apply it in their teaching and eventually embed it in their practice. Now, if we take those steps, the suggestion is that some teachers won't need a coach to go through those steps. In fact, some teachers won't even be aware that they're taking themselves through those steps. Some teachers are naturally self-reflective, confident, independent learners, and it's like, uh-oh, something's happening here, I need to change. And so they just bang, it just happens. And some teachers will do that with their peers, through a conversation in the staff room or in the corridor or in a departmental meeting. These things happen. But some teachers will need coaching support to be taken through that process. Maybe support in identifying what the situation is, maybe support in identifying the solution, support in learning it, support in adapting it. And that's where the skills, the coaching skills, kick in. So what we're talking about with the How to Instructional Coaching program is the possibility of infusing a coaching culture into a professional learning organisation. And part of the course, and this comes on days 3 and 4, is looking at a whole school approach, a whole college approach, a whole organisational approach to instructional coaching. So they're the 3 main points I wanted to make. But one little story just to finish off. There's a guy called Stevie Peters who's a coach at RAF Cosford. And he talks about there being 3 families within an organisation. He talks about the by me family, those teachers who are naturally self-reflective, who will, if you like, coach themselves, who will realise that there's a situation, a learning need, a barrier that needs addressing, and they'll find solutions and change their practice without, involving anyone, let alone a coach. And then he talks about the with me family. These are practitioners who really enjoy supporting their peers with their learning, and are quite open to being supported by their peers or by a coach with their learning. And then finally, he talks about the for me family. And these are teachers who may find it difficult to identify that learning needs are emerging in their classroom, and they may need support in identifying what those learning needs are and in finding solutions and learning them and so forth. And the suggestion here is that the platform provides you with the tools and the content that you need to support all 3 of those families. I hope you found this useful. Have a great day and let me know how you get on.